China.
China.
Guarding the U.S. against threats from China.
China, the scam called China.
Why is there so much negative and fake news in the media about China? The media said the people in Xinjiang are suffering under forced labor and some are even dying. But I visited Xinjiang. I went to many cities in Xinjiang, talked with the locals, spent days with the locals. I even spent 2 nights in a Uyghur home. But what I saw, my experiences in Xinjiang were completely different. Again, the media and some comments on one of my previous videos about homelessness here in China said homeless people in China are shipped off to faraway places and faraway villages and left to die. Within the past 6 years of me living here in China, I've traveled across many small villages and big cities, and I've never come across these homeless people who were left to die. It's not like you won't find a homeless person. You can find a homeless person, but the ratio is quite low. What I understood is that when people can't find jobs, they go back to their hometowns or to their villages where they can of course get stuff for free. And that's not even all. Again, they said no freedom in China. They said people have no freedom in China. They said foreigners have no freedom in China. Everything you do is monitored. Everything you do, they keep an eye on it. Here in China, I am free. Very free. I was able to travel across many different cities, across different provinces within the past months. No big problem. And again, within the past 6 years that I've been living here in China, I've traveled across almost every province without any big problems. Of course, sometimes I experience some problems that normal travelers experience while traveling in a foreign country, but nothing like the Western media always talks about. Well, I'll tell you guys more on this a little bit later on in this video. One of the funniest other fake news I heard is the aspect of religion. They said you can't practice religion here in China. They said churches are not allowed and mosques are not allowed. Well, I'll bring you all the facts and proofs a little bit later on in this video. And the popular one, I'm sure you all know, they've been singing it for a while now, saying China is collapsing. It's clear. I made a video on that. I'm sure you can see all the proof about China's GDP, which definitely proves it's not collapsing. That's another fake news because the truth is that there's a global economic problem. And every country is facing this problem, not just China. But why does the media focus more on China? And again, they said China is racist. Someone said China is the most racist country in the world. Of course, there are 1.4 billion people here in China, and there are different people with different mindsets. And across my 6 years living here in China, I've experienced some difficult situations, which I've said before on this channel. But the truth is that only a handful of people can perpetrate such ideas and act in a way that might feel racist. But again, I've never seen a situation here in China where someone died or someone was killed because they are hated or because of the color of their skin. A couple of months back, there was another fake news about a bear here in China. Can you imagine that? They said the bear was not actually a bear. They said the bear was a human in a bear costume. So funny. The media carried that narrative all across the world and so many people easily believe them. You know what scares me is the fact that so many people easily believe all of this media propaganda. Recently, I even came across a video here on YouTube saying that it is finished. China is cancelling Christmas. They say China has cancelled Christmas. Can you imagine that? And the funniest part about it all is that there were so many people believing this news about China, from people who do not even live in China, from people who just hate China for no reason. So my question is, what is the reason for all this? Why do people keep spreading fake news and hate against China? Do you know this news and comments impacts all Chinese across the world? Just like comments about African countries and Africans have been impacting Africans in other parts of the world. Everything we say, everything the news media says and does affects everyone in one way or the other. Now I have to ask this question. Who is the world police? Who decides what is right and what is wrong? Why do some people point fingers at China, for example, for trying to create friendships with other countries or doing their best to enhance world peace, and they do not point finger at some other countries perpetrating wars? When a superpower in the world interferes in the politics or wars of another country, no one says a word. But when China comes in to be a mediator, to maybe create friendship and do business with that country, everyone starts saying China has come to cause chaos or China has come to cause problems. Let me ask this question. Has China ever dropped a bomb on a single country in the world? You should ask yourself this question. From my observations, what I've noticed is that China goes to countries to be able to create friendships with those countries and sign business deals with those countries. Well, I'm not sure we can say the same for most of the other countries across the globe. I'm certain that if many countries had the power that China has, the world would definitely be in much more turmoil than we are seeing right now. And if you observe clearly, you realize that in most cases, even during the UN General Assembly and many other scenarios across the globe, China is always trying to bring peace between everyone. And China hasn't dropped bombs in countries, China hasn't sent a huge military to go and invade countries, China hasn't sponsored countries fighting wars.
Unprecedented deaths and destruction. An immediate ceasefire is the overriding prerequisite. On this issue, any negative attitude is untenable. It needs to be pointed out that condoning the continuation of fighting while claiming to care about the lives and safety of the people in Gaza and the humanitarian needs there is self-contradictory.
So we need to ask ourselves why the Western media keeps on spreading the negative news about China. And I am making this video not just for China alone, but for the whole world, including Africa itself. Because what affects China affects the whole world. What affects one country affects the other, either directly or indirectly. So that's the reason why I'm making this video, to analyze most of the misinformation that is being spread out of China by the media to everyone. And so many people tend to believe this media, and that affects so many people's livelihood. Now, China has more than 1.4 billion in population. It's a very huge country with so many people, and I think about 55 different minorities right here in China. That means 55 different people, 55 different ideologies, 55 different cultures and traditions, and they all live here in China happily together. I believe all of this is done due to the policies that have been put in place to ensure that everyone lives in peace and harmony. And I think there are many countries across the globe that do not like the fact that many minorities here in China live together, live happily in one accord. So when people say that China is actually against minorities, China is trying to eradicate cultures, China is trying to eradicate traditions, I traveled across China, and before my 60-day travel which I made recently, I have been traveling across China and visiting different minorities across Yunnan, across Hunan, across Xinjiang, and different places. And what I've noticed here in China is that minorities are encouraged, traditions are encouraged, local customs are actually encouraged, because I learned that the government here in China gives incentives to all these minorities to be able to create employment amongst themselves. But I'm not sure this is the case across Europe, across the USA, across Australia, and even across Africa. You can check information about the minorities closest to your location. There are so many minority people struggling and going through a lot in many places across the globe, but the media remains silent about these minorities in other countries actually struggling to make a living. But what I've seen right here in China is completely different. So many minorities are just happy, living their lives and practicing their culture in a happy way. The truth is that we can't decide who is good or who is bad when we have problems in our backyard. We need to first of all solve our own problems before we can point fingers at people who are even trying their best. Because from what I've seen living here in China, they are really doing the best to make sure that everyone here in China live in harmony. Now, talking about the fake news coming from Xinjiang, there are currently about 8 million Uyghurs living in Xinjiang, of course, and across China. Right here in Guangdong, where I currently live, I've come across many Uyghurs who came from Xinjiang to Guangdong, and they have a business here. And in other provinces, I also came across many Uyghur people who own huge restaurants, who own large businesses, and they are doing just well. Go to Chengdu, go to Chongqing, you will see most of the Uyghur people just living their lives, controlling their businesses and making money. It's the same in Xinjiang. Although some people might say I'm hiding the truth from people, or I'm not saying the truth, I'm just saying what I saw, what I experienced. Even after talking with some locals right there, they clearly told me it's really amazing and I had fun. And I even visited some farms in Xinjiang, and I realized that all the workers there get paid, of course, and they work at their own will. They work happily, unlike what most of the media has been saying about that region. Recently, China is open to many people. You can travel from your country directly to Xinjiang, and you do not even need a permit to visit Xinjiang. Can you imagine that? It's open to anyone, to any tourist who wants to go there and talk with the local people and experience Xinjiang for yourself. So talking about the homeless situation here in China, in most cases, what I saw were people just resting and waiting for their bus or train at the train station or at the bus station. And if you find a homeless person here in China, it's extremely rare. Most of those people are self-employed. Well, I'll make another video in the near future, and if you want to see that video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And in that video, I'll show you more details about the homeless situation here in China as compared to many countries across the globe. I know that it's very strange when we as foreigners who are not living in China hear of the fact that there are little to no homeless people here in China, but it's the truth. All the monies that could have been embezzled, all the monies that could have been used for wars, they take it here in China and they put it into the economy to be able to have everyone employed. Of course, even if not everyone, most of the people employed to help them take care of themselves. Unlike in the West, where you will find homeless people everywhere, and that's because some people can't pay their bills, some people can't even afford their rents, some people can't take care of their families, they have to pay mortgages. It's so hard out there. It's so hard for so many people. So why do we think most of these medias actually point fingers at China for doing the best for their citizens? Again, I am not saying that everything here in China is just perfect, or everyone is just happy, or everyone is employed, or there is no homeless person at all. Now, on to the very next point, which is really funny when I read the news in the media, is that you can't practice religion here in China. That's strange coming from so many people, because during my time here in China, I've seen so many churches and lots of mosques. Everyone is free to practice their religion. There are numerous churches right here in China, and I even have friends who are Christians. And the mother to one of my Chinese friends is a Christian, and she prays every night. I spent a couple of days with them sometime, and we used to pray together, and they go to church. Actually, guys, there are more than 4,000 churches here in China, and of course more than 39,000 mosques, with most of these mosques being in Xinjiang, and then the others spread across the country here in China. So when you look at this number of churches and this number of mosques, you can clearly see that religion right here in China is free. Everyone can go to church, everyone can practice their religion, just like everyone can practice their culture, their custom, and their tradition. But if you go right here on YouTube or you check out the media, you will see tons and tons of videos saying that China doesn't accept Islam, China doesn't accept religion, China doesn't accept Christianity. But there are so many people who go to church every Sunday and they practice their religion freely. It's very easy to do research, or you can come to China and go to a church yourself, and you will see so many people in these churches practicing their religion. And of course, I even visited a few mosques while I was in Xinjiang. It was an amazing experience. Of course, I couldn't film inside the mosque because I'm not Muslim, but then seeing all those mosques and seeing all the people practicing their religion freely was amazing. So I hope we shouldn't listen to the media a lot. Let's always do our best to do research, and of course keep an open mind when taking in such information, because this can actually cause harm in the long run. It's due to fake news and misinformation like this around the world that affects so many citizens living in different countries. And as if that's not enough, they even went ahead to say China's economy would collapse. I made a video on this previously, and China's economy is still standing right up until now. It's so funny, because within the past 10 to 20 years, as China has been growing, so many different news channels and even here on YouTube have been saying and singing consistently that China's economy was going to collapse in about 30 days, in about 10 days. But China's economy is still standing strong. As a matter of fact, the economy even grew by 5% this year. But what this same media is not telling you is that other countries are also experiencing a slow or low economic growth rate, which is really sad, because now these media try to focus more on pointing fingers at China rather than looking at the serious problem that is happening right in their own backyard. When I look at all the news, all the YouTube videos talking against China, it's really sad, because they do not know that all these things they say actually affects many people, either directly or indirectly. Now, millennials, despite every video I make about China and everything I say about China, it is not because I support China. It is not because I hate another country. All these videos I make are just to bring us all together, because if you look at the world today, there's so much trouble and hatred, and there are so many people who are dying because of the negative news, the misinformation in the media, which clouds so many people's judgment. So everything I say right here on this channel is just to let you open your mind even more and understand the truth. And again, if making these videos and sharing the truth about China in hopes that I can bridge the gap between China and Africa, China and the world, if making these videos in hopes for peace and understanding amongst ourselves makes some people to say that I'm just sponsored by the CPC here in China, or it's all propaganda, or it's all fake, then I think those people saying all of this need to do more research and need to keep an open mind. Because the truth is that the world needs less of hate these days and more of love and understanding. And one reason why I respect China so much is because of how far they have come within the past years and how far the citizens have worked so hard to build their country to be where it is today. The truth is that when it comes to China in the world, most of the Western media makes a mountain out of a molehill. I don't know if it's because of the clicks, or it's because of an agenda, or it's because China has come this far in this short time. But then we need to be very aware of what we are watching, of the information we are getting into our brains in order for us to better understand the world and the truth. Again, like I said, China is not perfect. China is barely striving for perfection, just like every other country across the globe. Because truth be told, it's not easy to take care of 1.4 billion people and move your country to the level where China is at right now. And I hope that my own country in Africa and other countries in Africa too, and of course across the globe, can try to learn from the consistency of China to be able to build our own countries and build our own economies, and of course to make the lives better for every citizen. So here's my advice. When you see any news about China in the media out of China, take it with a grain of salt. Do your research, dig more so you can get more information to understand the true China. Do not hate people or citizens because of what you hear in the media. Remember, there's so much misinformation today in the media. I hope this video opened your mind. Well, if you want to see my trip across China, you can check out this channel. There are so many more videos which I made during my trip here in China, and you will be amazed by what I saw, the people I talked to, and everyone I spent time with. And of course, if you would like to see more of those amazing videos and more videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, this is Willene. See you next time.